I had decided to invite Mom to come live with us. When my husband suddenly announced his plans for cohabitation, I nearly dropped my cup. "What? You can't just spring something like that on me. It's impossible here," he replied. "Mom's been left alone and is very sad. I was thinking she could stay with us for a while. She'll move in next week." I understood his concern for his mother, who had recently lost her husband in a car accident. However, I was upset that he made the decision without consulting me. I tried to convince myself it would be okay for a short while. To my surprise, the following week, my mother-in-law arrived with a moving company in tow. "What's all this stuff? What's going on here?" I asked, bewildered. "I sold my house because it's definitely more comfortable here," she replied. "I thought if I'm going to move, I might as well do it properly." Stunned, I looked at my husband, who was grinning mischievously. "Didn't I tell you I was going to invite Mom to live with us? This is my house, and you need to obey the head of the household's orders. Make sure you take good care of Mom." "Head of the household? What are you talking about? This is the place I'm renting from my cousin Lisa, remember?" I shot back. He shrugged. "I know that, but right now, I'm the one paying the steep rent here. If you can't obey me, then get out of this house." Although $2,500 was just half the rent, I felt it was better to let them face reality squarely. I packed my belongings into a suitcase and decided to leave the house silently. This is no good. After leaving the apartment, I sighed heavily and made a phone call. "I'm Sarah Johnson, 35 years old. I opened a facial spa 7 years ago. I went to vocational school to become a beautician, but during my studies, my career aspirations shifted. Believing that true beauty starts with healthy skin, I decided to start my own business after years of training at a salon. My husband Kyle and I have been married for 3 years and living together. We reconnected at our 10-year high school reunion, where we bonded over our mutual interest in natural stone bracelets. At the time, Kyle suggested, if you want to boost your love luck, maybe rose quartz would be better. "Why, and how do you know that?" I asked, intrigued. "Oh, I got interested in gemstones a while back," he explained. "We're getting to that age where marriage and serious relationships come to mind, and I just thought rose quartz seemed promising for that." Kyle, known as Bedhead among the girls in school for his tousled hair, piqued my interest with his casual remark. He was indifferent to his looks or rumors but surprisingly knowledgeable. At the after-party, I discovered he was also into my favorite anime and had rare insights. From there, I reached out to him, and we started dating. Today marks our 2nd anniversary of dating. I want to be with you next year too, so how about we get married?" Kyle proposed. "Is this a proposal?" I stammered. "Yeah, what else would it be?" he said casually. Kyle was an odd guy but a fun and comfortable presence for me, so I saw no reason to refuse. 2 years into our marriage, a golden opportunity arose, an incredible offer from my beloved older cousin Lisa. Lisa, 10 years my senior, had always doted on me since I was a child. We were close like sisters. Her proposal was indeed marvelous, but perhaps too stimulating for us as a couple, or maybe just for Kyle. I never expected it would lead to such a conclusion. Starting next month, my husband's job is taking us abroad for 2 years. "Sarah, why don't you live in our condo while we're gone?" Lisa offered. "Ah, no way. I can't afford the rent for a place like that," I replied. Lisa's husband John had been successful with his business from a young age, making them incredibly wealthy. Lisa herself had become an independent management consultant and was steadily increasing her profits. "Sarah, you mentioned before that you can't seem to make more than $55,000 a month, right? Why don't you try living like a celeb for once? If you start taking that kind of environment for granted, you might just solve all your current problems in one go," Lisa suggested. "I see, so you're saying to change my perspective on money." "That's right. Our rent is $30,000, but if you're going to live there, I'll let you have it for $6,000. "How about it?" Lisa offered. My head spun. Even my current rent of $1,800 felt steep, but honestly, I really liked our current place and didn't want to let it go, but John suggested renting it out to me as an investment. The owner of Lisa's condo, a friend of John's named Mr. Otmo, supports entrepreneurs. When Lisa shared my story with him, he agreed right away to rent it out to us. I get that it's a good offer, but can I discuss it with Kyle before I decide? I asked. Of course, I'll be looking forward to your response, Lisa replied. At this point, I had been running my salon for 5 years. Despite my hard work, there was a limit to what I could do alone, and I had almost given up hope that my monthly income would ever exceed $10,000. The thought of the higher rent was already weighing on me. When I got home, I found my husband engrossed in his new workout routine. Cautiously, I brought up Lisa's offer. Why not? It'd be a bigger space and super close to work, Kyle said. As an in-house designer for a corporation, Kyle was less concerned with overtime. He was the type to focus only on what he enjoyed. Commuting from Lisa's condo would significantly reduce his travel time. But it'll be a bigger financial load than before, I reminded him. You know, it's for your growth. I'm fine either way, so just work it out with Lisa, he responded nonchalantly. Even after marriage, Kyle had remained indifferent to anything outside his interests, except perhaps for the shorter commute. He didn't seem particularly interested in the details, nodding absent-mindedly as I explained the terms of living there and the rent. I wondered if he was even listening. After much thought, I decided to take on the challenge and agreed to move in. We decided I would pay half the rent, $115,000, while Kyle would cover the other half, and I'd handle all our living expenses. I was determined to gamble these 2 years on a life-changing experience. Wow, this is amazing. That's incredible. That was our first reaction when we stepped into the high-end rental property. The place was so luxurious that even the side closet for shoes felt livable. The living room, over 430 square feet, seemed perfect for hosting grand parties. The standard feature was a white leather sofa in the vast space. We were told to use the furniture and appliances as they were, and they were all of a kind I could never afford in my life. It hardly felt like home. Having never even stayed in a hotel suite, the place felt incredibly lavish, almost uncomfortably so. Now I understood what Lisa had meant. If we got used to this environment, our perspective might really change. Yeah, indeed, Kyle agreed, and so our life in the luxury condo began. Familiarity can be a frightening thing. Within 3 months, the place we used to tense up in started feeling like a sanctuary. It even changed my approach to work. Since we moved here for a reason, I started thinking about what we could do to take advantage of the location. I'm thinking of taking the plunge and hiring someone for my salon. Maybe even doing workshops or something with the extra time, I told Kyle. People have been requesting it, right? If you want to do it, Sarah, you should give it a shot, he encouraged. I ran a beauty-related social media account personally and had received requests for a while to host workshops or tea parties where people could talk to me directly. Since then, it's been a process of trial and error, learning and practicing every day. It was exhausting, but the results were well received. Before I knew it, I was easily making over $10,000 a month. The environment not only changed me but also had a big impact on Kyle. His appearance changed noticeably. Perhaps he thought it would be problematic for the neighbors if he continued to neglect his looks. He started making sure his hair was neat and dressing sharper when he went out. Although getting ready often left the house a mess, he seemed more confident and started getting approached by people at work. People I had never talked to before started approaching me. Even I couldn't deny that Kyle looked the best he ever had. The first year after we moved, our life was going exceptionally well. However, a dark cloud loomed when my mother-in-law, who learned about our new place through the New Year's cards, decided to visit. She has a hobby of taking classes and possesses a lavish, vain personality. I was surprised when I saw the address. What an amazing house! I never imagined Kyle would move into a place like this. I'm so proud, she exclaimed, clearly as astonished as we had been. This house is just right, Kyle interjected, cutting me off with a grin, as if he had rented the place himself. He gestured for me to be quiet with a finger to his lips. My class is close by, so it's easy to stop by on my way home. I'll be dropping in from time to time, she added. Sure, just make sure to let us know before you come over, I replied, feeling uneasy. As time passed, her visits became more frequent. After my father-in-law retired, he often went on fishing trips with his friends, leaving my mother-in-law to stay with us more often. What bothered me most was her habit of sleeping on our white living room sofa, despite my repeated requests not to. I even laid out a futon on the floor, but I would still find her on the sofa. Mother-in-law, please don't sleep on the white sofa. This is a rented place, I reminded her. Oh, sorry about that. It's just so comfy that I end up sleeping here without realizing it, she responded. Initially, my mother-in-law behaved like a guest, but gradually she started acting as if the place were her own. She was careless with the furniture and appliances, and I constantly worried she might damage something. Hey, don't you think you're coming over too often? This isn't our house. You should hold back a little, I gently suggested. What? Let me enjoy it too. This kind of lifestyle doesn't come around often. Besides, you've been asking me to clean the house every time, she retorted, brushing off my concerns. Having Mom around has been handy for you, right? Kyle hadn't corrected the lie he told his mother about renting the place. Since he started dressing properly, he's become really sloppy at home, relying on his mother for tidying up. It must have been convenient for him, but the cleaning she supposedly did only happened at the beginning. Sarah, the house is a mess. Don't just sit there. Vacuum the floor. The bathroom is soaking wet. My mother-in-law would scold me when I got home from work. She was there more often, and Kyle, influenced by her, started blaming me for the untidiness, increasing my stress levels. Since my father-in-law was often away from their house, I initially felt somewhat relieved, thinking the situation couldn't get much worse. But as my mother-in-law's visits increased, another source of stress emerged. Kyle started coming home late, sometimes not until the morning, often drunk. Occasionally, the smell of perfume lingered on him. When confronted, he claimed he was just exploring new bars. Cut it out already. It's fine to go out for drinks, but coming home in the morning isn't normal. And how much are you spending on drinking anyway? I'm giving you enough for expenses, aren't I? I asked, exasperated. How I use my money is my business. Just leave it be, Kyle retorted. His response shocked me. He never used to talk like this. But there was something else I needed to address. You've been wearing John's suits from the closet, haven't you? Do you think that's okay? I questioned him. What? You use Lisa's clothes and bags without asking, right? He shot back. I was dumbfounded. Did he really think it was okay to just use anything in the house as he pleased? I always get permission and take them to the cleaners afterward. Have you got permission from John? I asked, trying to keep my composure. Well, you'd handle that part. Just make it sound good. John's suits are really cool and fit me perfectly since we're about the same height. I get a lot of compliments, he said nonchalantly. I was furious, of course. The suits belonging to our landlord, who could afford such a nice house, would naturally be stylish. If Kyle ruined them, there was no way we could afford to replace them. Stop it right now. Take care of what you've used and don't ever wear them again, I demanded. Would you quit nagging? Seriously, you're so annoying. I'm in my prime for attracting attention. If you keep this up, I'm out of here. Divorce? I mean it, he snapped back. It felt as if a century-long love had turned cold. The man standing before me was no longer the husband I knew. But then, an unexpected event occurred. My father-in-law had an accident while out fishing and passed away. Caught up with funeral arrangements, I had momentarily forgotten about our problems. But once the 49-day mourning period ended, my husband dropped a bombshell. I've decided to have Mom move in with us, he announced suddenly, nearly causing me to drop my cup. What? You can't just spring that on me. It's not possible here, I responded, shocked. Mom's really sad being all alone, so I thought we'd live together for a while, he explained. But how can you decide that on your own? Why didn't you discuss this with me sooner? I asked, feeling betrayed. Sorry, but I thought you'd understand, Sarah, he replied. I was upset by the sudden news, but I tried to convince myself that it might be bearable for a short while. I was worried about my mother-in-law, who had just lost her husband, but the way my husband had decided on their living arrangement without consulting me felt like a betrayal. The following week, to my surprise, my mother-in-law arrived with movers. "What's all this about?" I asked, stunned. "This place is much more comfortable than my old house." I thought, why not sell the house and move here, she explained. "What?" I looked at my husband, who was grinning at me. "I told you we were going to have Mom move in, right?" he said smugly. "But I said it wasn't possible here, and you said it was only for a while," I exclaimed. "This house is big enough. One more person won't hurt," he insisted. He had planned to live with his mother here all along. I didn't know what he had told her, but selling her own house to move in was unexpected. I felt a headache coming on. And then my husband said something even more absurd. "This is my house. You'll follow the head of the household's orders and take care of Mom," he declared. "What head of the household? What are you talking about? This house is borrowed from Lisa, remember?" I reminded him. "I know, but right now, who's paying the steep rent? Me, right?" he shot back. My husband had always been indifferent to money and possessions, but I never imagined he'd be so careless as to barely remember the details about this house. When he was single, Kyle lived in a cheap apartment that cost just $500 a month. I could understand why he'd think $33,000 a month for rent seemed outrageously expensive, but did he seriously believe someone would rent us this property for such a price? If you can't listen to your husband, then pack up and leave. You've become so annoying with all your nagging lately. That's right, thanks to Kyle, we're living this good life, and here you are complaining like an ungrateful spouse, he continued, his words cutting deep. I finally understood my husband's scheme. Ever since we moved into this house and started getting attention from everyone around us, he probably found my reminders about his spending habits and coming home late annoying. He was trying to kick me out without even realizing his massive misunderstanding. "Fine, I'll leave. But are you sure that's what you want?" I asked, holding back my frustration. "Yeah, I'm done with you. I'm going to live here with Mom. With Dad's inheritance and the money from selling the family home, we'll be just fine. I'll send the divorce papers to the salon later," he declared. So that's why he called his mother. I could have argued, but I decided to let them face reality on their own. Biting back my retort, I packed my things into a suitcase and silently left the house. "This is a mess," I sighed deeply once outside the apartment and called Lisa. "What? No way I'm going to let him treat my cousin like that. Just wait a month. Once I'm ready, I'll come back home," Lisa fumed. Furious with Kyle's actions, she decided to return home half a year earlier than planned. About a month later, I received a call from Kyle. I had received the divorce papers right after leaving, but I knew this call wasn't about that. I thought about ignoring it, but the phone kept ringing. Reluctantly, I answered. "Sarah, finally. The management company says the rent hasn't been paid. I've been making the payments as usual. Please, can you check with Lisa?" "What's going on?" he asked, sounding desperate. "Did you check the bank account?" I replied. "Yeah, it's got $3,000 in it," he said. I almost burst out laughing. I hadn't made any deposits into the account since leaving the apartment, and I had withdrawn the balance, leaving just $3,000. "You won't even cover the utility bills, let alone the rent. How embarrassing it must be to live in a luxury apartment and have your electricity cut off," I said. "Why didn't you leave enough money in there? Why should I pay the utilities for a place I don't even live in anymore?" Kyle retorted. He fell silent, probably realizing the absurdity of his request. "You have the day off tomorrow, right? I'll come over so we can talk." "Yeah, sure, I'd appreciate it," he said, sounding defeated. That's what he gets for overstepping. I was determined to make sure he cleaned up his own mess. The next day, I went to the apartment with Lisa, who had just returned from abroad. I could have used my key, but I rang the doorbell out of courtesy. My mother-in-law answered. "Yes, who is it?" "Sarah, why are you back? Didn't you get a divorce?" "Yes, I did. I'm here to have you vacate the apartment." Her shock was palpable, and Kyle appeared behind her, looking guilty. It was clear he hadn't told her about the current situation. When he saw Lisa standing behind me, his eyes widened. "Lisa, what are you doing here?" I had to come back to the States on short notice after getting a call from Sarah. "Oh, this is Mr. Thompson, the owner and manager of this apartment. We invited him to join us for this discussion." As we entered the living room, I was taken aback. In just a month, the once pristine space had turned into a storage area. Boxes of my mother-in-law's moving items were piled up in the corner, still unpacked. Lisa sighed beside me as we took our seats on the couch. Mr. Thompson spoke first. "So, about the rent for this month. When can I expect the payment?" "Well, I deposited the usual $3,000 into the account, but it seems like it hasn't been withdrawn," Kyle said, his voice sweaty and pitiful, his bedhead as disheveled as ever. "Did you seriously think $3,000 was enough?" I asked. "I asked you to pay just half of the rent." "What? Half? You mean it's actually $6,000? Kyle's face turned to shock as he began scratching his head frantically. I couldn't help but be a little impressed by his selective memory on things he wasn't interested in. "That's right, the rent is $6,000. Kyle mumbled, clearly confused. "But actually, the rent here is $30,000. What? What kind of figure is that?" Kyle stammered, realizing he had misunderstood the amount he was supposed to pay. Beside my husband, my mother-in-law's eyes were wide with shock. "What do you mean $30,000? She asked, visibly panicked. "This apartment belongs to Lisa, whom I rent from. We had a 2-year lease but decided to terminate it 6 months early due to this situation," I explained. My mother-in-law's face turned pale as she repeatedly tapped Kyle's knee. "What are we going to do? I sold my house thinking Kyle was earning well, and I've been shopping a lot too. What are we going to do?" She started trembling, her hands covering her mouth in distress. She quickly turned to Lisa and pleaded, "Lisa, can Kyle and I sign a lease for $3,000 just for half a year? I can't give up living here so suddenly." Lisa's face tightened into a frown at my mother-in-law's audacious request. "Sarah, help me out here. You know, you're welcome to move back in too." I felt my own expression matching Lisa's as I frowned. "I rented this place to support Sarah's hard work. I won't forgive anyone who tries to kick her out," Lisa said, her gaze turning sharply to Kyle, who closed his eyes and looked down in defeat. But leaving this place was no longer a simple matter. Lisa gestured to the white leather sofa, now marred by stains and dirt. "To think how carelessly you've treated things. I was planning to have you purchase the heavily worn items after 2 years, so I'll be doing a check now." "Wait a minute," Kyle said, his voice filled with unease. "I wasn't informed about this," Kyle said, his voice sounding utterly ridiculous as he looked up in confusion. "You're supposed to restore a rental to its original condition before returning it," I explained. "It's only fair to compensate if you've misused the furniture and appliances." I'd mentioned this before, but considering you didn't even remember the rent details, it's clear those specifics didn't stick. Lisa began to walk around the apartment, inspecting everything. From the kitchen, I heard several sighs, indicating that the appliances would likely need to be purchased. As she opened the bedroom closet, her sighs grew heavier. "Kyle, did you wear John's suits without permission?" she asked. "I didn't agree to lend you personal items, and you've treated them roughly too. You'll definitely need to buy these at full price." It was clear that despite being told not to wear them, Kyle had worn 3 suits, each valued over $10,000. The only silver lining was that he hadn't worn more. "Kyle, I'm so disappointed," Lisa said, her voice tinged with hurt. "I trusted you with this house because of you and Sarah. I have no sympathy for anyone who's hurt my dear Sarah." Kyle's face turned ashen as he shook violently. The amount Lisa suggested for the purchases was substantial. To drive the point home, Mr. Thompson spoke up. "As for me," he said, "I need you to pay this month's rent of $30,000 along with the cleaning fee for the room. The $6,000 rent here is strictly under the contract with Sarah, not with you. I need you to vacate the place as soon as possible." But it's impossible to just leave like this," Kyle protested. "Sarah, please, ask her on my behalf to." Kyle's mother, who had been downcast, suddenly raised her face and cried out, "Why should I? I've already submitted the divorce papers Kyle sent, so we're strangers now. I have no obligation to help a stranger." Mr. Thompson looked at her with pity but stood firm in presenting the harsh reality. "If you can't vacate immediately, I'll have to sue for illegal occupation." "I can't stand this anymore," the mother screamed as she stood up and left the room. Kyle was left stunned, as if his soul had departed. He looked at me with a pleading expression. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I've finally woken up. I got carried away thinking I was rich and I lost my mind," Kyle admitted, his voice filled with remorse. "You seem to have come to your senses. I'm really sorry. It was all my fault. Let's start over in a new place." No matter what he said now, it no longer touched my heart. Our trust was shattered, and I'd also heard that Kyle had been unfaithful. "It's not going to work," I'd replied firmly. "As I said earlier, we're already divorced. Even though I filed for divorce in anger, I have no regrets and I've moved on completely." I turned to face my ex-husband with a full smile. Seeing my expression, he seemed to lose hope and asked quietly, "You've been covering everything but half the rent, haven't you? By the way, how much are you earning now?" It struck me that we hadn't discussed work in a long time. "I've just started making over $116,000 a month," I said. "I might even reach $20,000 by the end of the year." "No way!" Kyle exclaimed. "Why didn't you tell me? Please give us another chance." Kyle slid off the sofa, tears streaming down his face as he collapsed onto the floor. His hair was still tousled from sleep. I wished he would remain that bedraggled boy forever. No matter how much our standard of living had risen, seeing him like this made me feel a pain of sadness, despite thinking I was over it. Soon after, perhaps fearing the threat of legal action, Kyle and his mother rented a monthly apartment and moved out. They managed to pay off their debts with the inheritance from Kyle's father and by selling their family home, but their finances were still tight. Kyle's earnings weren't bad, and if he lived within his means, he should be able to manage. After the divorce, Kyle reached out to apologize just once. While I had no intention of reconciling, I genuinely wished him the best. He lamented that it's hard to lower one's standard of living once it's gone up, referring to his mother's enjoyment of her hobbies and luxuries. I couldn't help but worry about their future. I chose not to ask for alimony from Kyle. Some might view this as too lenient, but I believed I was the one who had changed. The carefree man with the bedhead had adapted to a mindset where a luxurious lifestyle felt normal, which helped me earn significantly. My endeavors are reaching new heights because of it. Kyle and his mother, however, had used that environment to elevate their standards without realizing their delusion. Now, I live alone in a $3,600 rental. Though I'm not yet at the level of my former lease, I feel I've come a long way from when a $1,800 rent was a struggle. I believe in myself and am determined to continue pursuing my dreams.